Right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Beverley Town Council Grants Committee meeting on the 7th of July 2001. Unfortunately, the chair, Councillor David Horsley, isn't here this evening due to technical issues, and I think we also have apologies from Councillor David Tucker, who's the vice chair. Therefore, I'm Matt Snowden, for anyone who's watching. I'm the acting town clerk, and because we don't have a chair, I will start the meeting just by explaining that we are live on YouTube. Councillors know the usual drill. If people can raise their hands so we can see them when it comes to taking comments. So members of the public are aware, when the Coronavirus Act, the Emergency Coronavirus Act, was extended by the government, that didn't include an extension to allow councils to meet remotely and make decisions legally. Therefore, our council resolved, when they still could legally make resolutions, on the 12th of April, that I, as acting town clerk, have delegated powers to make decisions. Any, rather than resolutions, but recommendations councillors make within meetings will guide what I do, with then our full council meetings, which are now meeting in person, resolving and ratifying any of those decisions. So we'll start the meeting by myself asking for a nomination for a chair for tonight's meeting. Councillor Hopkins.
Could I nominate Councillor Johnson, please?
And do I have a seconder?
Second.
Beverley? Therefore, Councillor Johnson, you're in the lucky seat. It's over to you.
I'm in the hot seat. Well, thank you very much indeed for your nomination. So apologies for absence. Sadly, we do have a few apologies for absence. The usual chair is unable to be with us due to technical difficulties that he has. The deputy chair is on holiday. Councillor Boynton is a frontline worker and he has been called in to work. And Councillor Gow has also sent his apologies as well. So, but we are quorate this evening, so we can make decisions. And of course, any decision that we do make has to go to full council for ratification. But this is quite an exciting evening, I think, because this is the first opportunity we have to look at partnership grants. And from that perspective, the way in which the town council can work with more organisations in partnership to enhance the life of the people of Beverley through various different criteria. Obviously, the first thing I have to do is ask if there are any declarations of interest from any of us here with regard to any of the organisations that have submitted grant applications. They are Beverley in Bloom, the Cherry Tree Community Centre, Beverley Rugby Union Football Club and the Wombles of Beverley. I'll start with a declaration by saying that I am an honorary Womble and I do go out wombling with them every now and again. So that's my link with the Wombles of Beverley. Does anybody else have any other links with any of the other? Okay, and therefore we have no dispensations, presumably. Okay, fantastic. So can we move on to agenda item 4A? And this is to consider a grant application from Beverley in Bloom for a partnership grant. So partnership grants are a new initiative for the town council, that these will enable organisations to apply for a grant of up to £3,000 a year over 3 years. So in total, they could apply for up to £9,000. However, we require feedback on an annual basis to ensure that the terms in which we have given the grant award are fulfilled. But it also means that there is a member of the town council who is going to work with them on a very close basis. The big advantage, of course, of having a partnership grant for most organisations is that they will be able to announce to the world that they've already got support from the Beverley Town Council, and they will be able to apply for other grants on the back of that. Yes, Councillor Willis.
Could they ask for more money ongoing as an extra bit of a grant, if you see what I mean? Is 3,000 all they can have for the year?
Yes.
If they need more, I'm thinking, you know, with the flowers and stuff like that, if they need more, can they ask for it?
Applicants are only eligible to apply for one grant per year.
All right. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
But that, sorry, Councillor Hopkins.
Well, if I may, Councillor Willis, as Councillor Johnson actually mentioned, one of the things that having secure funding from us allows for any partners is that they can demonstrate viability to other organisations that offer grants. Often you can find match funding on a lot of cases where they expect an organisation to have some money secured. We can demonstrate, therefore, that our partners have some money secured, and they might therefore, on the basis of that, be able to secure further grants because they know there's a security in giving money to them, that they aren't going to fold quickly because they've got, you know, at least some funding from us.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for that.
Of course, partnership grants are only available to organisations that have a constitution, have audited accounts, and therefore are viable organisations. So there are various hoops that they've got to jump through. Now, Beverley and Bloom, of course, we know very well because they have been active in Beverley for at least 20 years, brightening up the town, doing amazing things with beautiful flowers and planting. And they have applied for a strategic partnership grant and have completed the form. Hopefully everybody has read the application. I would ask for your comments with regard to the application. There's only one thing that I have noticed is that they've ticked the box to say that they don't have audited accounts, where of course they do have audited accounts because previously they were a part of Beverley Town Council. Yes, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, just for a bit of background, Beverley in Bloom is going through a transitional year. So they've been long-standing, done amazing work, but the town council has managed some of their finances. They've managed other finances. So what's happened now is by going independent, it creates them a solidity and an identity on their own. In the past, the town council allocated money through the precept to Beverley and Bloom, but in recent years, that money has still been held with the town council, and Beverley and Bloom have had to come to the town council to request items be bought, which has become quite frustrating when all they may have wanted is they've seen a good deal on bulbs that they know they're going to use, but they can't just go out and get them straight away. So things have become quite protracted and drawn out. So by going independent, it's giving them more flexibility. And unlike a lot of organisations who have applied, this group does have that ongoing link with us. So they are different to many others in that they're going through this transition where the town council also manage their finances. And I did include a document within the form on their behalf from the town council, which shows the financial history. Because whilst the town council managed their finances, the Bloom Group also kept an eye on them and managed them and knew how they were budgeting as well. So it wasn't just a matter of the Beverley and Bloom not being aware. They were very aware and very proactive in making sure that they spent within their means, etc., while still getting external funding. I just wanted to caveat that because it is different to the other groups, but doesn't count them out at all.
Thank you for that clarification, Matt. I would invite comments from each of you with regard to this application as to your thinking before I sum up and we make a decision as to whether we should award it. I don't think there's any query that we should not be awarding this wonderful group partnership status. Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think they've been very thorough in the application. We know Beverley and Bloom very well as a great organisation that's done great things for the town. I also think that kind of formalising our relationship with them as a relationship of partners would be a really positive step. As Matt said, obviously there's been some frustrations that wants them to be able to have a bit more sort of independence, but that's why this kind of partnership is really important. I would be very much inclined for us to say that we want to to accept this application from Beverley and Bloom. And the other thing I just note is that in terms of the sort of how they envisage a member of the town council being an ambassador to them as part of this partnership is very familiar to all of us. We've known very well the relationship that councillors can have with Beverley and Bloom as a group, and just in general. To add something that we've said before, which is that I think these forms for the applications are just so much better. So it's been so much easier to go through and see exactly the case that Beverley and Bloom have made here.
Yeah, absolutely. Many thanks to Matt for his extremely hard work on making these so intuitive. Councillor Willis.
Yeah, I go along with it. I think, you know, they've been associated with us for so long, and I think it's rewarding them to give them their independence and showing how much we value them. You know, when I come to think they did, you know, the number of awards they've had for us, which puts Beverley on the map, helps businesses, helps the town generally. Yeah, oh, I'm all for it, yes.
Al.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I fully support this application, and it does see the in Bloom Group being, for want of a better word, more closely attached. It secures the Beverley and Bloom Group financially. It gives them a heads up with applying for grants outside, externally, from the town council, of which we all know they've been very successful in doing in the past, and long may they continue to be successful in getting funding. When you're talking about in Bloom, you're not just talking about planting and making the lawn and flower look tidy, but you're also looking at an expense, and it is an expensive project, is Beverley and Bloom, and I'm proud that the ladies and gentlemen members of the Beverley and Bloom group have done the work that they have done in the past, and I'm right. It's helped us achieve gold in Yorkshire and Bloom, and now that also achieved us entry into Brittany and Bloom, and they were there as part of the town council, showing their colours in the floral displays. So I have no illusions that I will support this. I think it's putting them in a steadfast position going forward, and I would move it. Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Willis.
I'm just wondering if people know, when we were entering these competitions, the number of towns where they had paid people to do the work, whereas we've got volunteers, and I just think that's amazing. So yes, I'll second it if you need a seconder.
Thank you. So I think there's no doubt that we want this organisation to become, what we have got to decide on is the amount of money that we are going to allocate to them. Now, they have said that so far this year they've spent £1,198.63. They've also asked for some additional help, that we have to put a price on for that. They've asked for help with watering. They've asked for help with photocopying, and they've also asked if they can use a room at the town council office, and they all involve a value that we must take into consideration when we're looking at that £3,000 absolute award. There's only, I'm more than happy that we should be supporting them with photocopying and watering, because as we know, there are lots of other planters which have again been produced by the town council, which have been cited on lampposts and in various places around the town, which have helped enhance the town, where Beverley and Bloom have not had the capacity to to do any specific planting there. And of course, that is all being watered. So watering the Beverley in Bloom displays, which are just fantastic at the station, outside East Riding Theatre, Telegraph Square and other places as well. I've noticed they've been busy. Would not be an issue, but it would of course create a cost. So we do have to take that into account. I want to ask the town clerk there with regard to whether they would be able to meet in the town council offices, because I'm sure that is not an option at the moment.
No, at the moment we're not even meeting in our town council offices, and whilst restrictions will potentially come to an end on the 19th of this month, people are still being very careful, and officers are, councillors are, and so we would advise from an officer point of view that for the foreseeable, Bloom may want to find an alternative venue. We're not sure what's going to happen with COVID. We do need to still keep secure. Our meeting room isn't huge, and it has very limited ventilation. And just apologies again if I'm looking to a side, it's because the camera's there and you're all over there on the screen. So yeah, well, it's not to say we don't want Bloom in the building. It's more we don't really want anybody at the moment because we've still been incredibly cautious. So it's for them, they may want to find somewhere more suitable. There are places such as some of the garden centres have nice outdoor spaces that can be leased for, I think, very little money, where no groups are meeting and things like that. So we could maybe advise and support them to find somewhere if we can't feel that we can facilitate them in a meeting room.
Yeah, absolutely. Old Royd springs to mind. That would be perfect for them. Bloom meeting in a garden centre, that would be fantastic. Are we minded that we award the full amount to Beverley and Bloom? And if so, what would we consider a reasonable amount to charge for photocopying and for watering? Yes, Matt.
Yeah, I think just to clarify what Linda's saying is if for all of these grants, if they're applying for, say, the full 3,000, but they're also asking for support in other ways, the council can agree something along the lines of, well, we take into consideration that we'll do, in this case, the watering and the photocopying. We may give a nominal £20 a year on the photocopying, even if it's going to be more, and a nominal £200-300 on the watering. So therefore, allocate, say, £2,500, £2,600 in money, with £400 or £500 covering all the rest of the support, because it does come as an additional expense, but it still probably wouldn't be as much as if we would be charging them up front.
Yes, Chloe.
Thank you. I was actually just going to ask the town clerk, or perhaps Peter, obviously, because you're chair of planning as well, if we have an idea of roughly what the actual cost of the watering would be, because it seems to me that could probably just guide our decision.
Pete?
Matt?
I think like tennis. I think we need to review this more closely, because this year we've got more plants than ever before. So we're doing more watering than ever before, and Beverley and Bloom have got more plants and doing more than ever before. So it's difficult to tell. What I think we need to do is, at the end of the watering season, is myself and Pete as the chair of PPS and the contractor sit down and look at this in more detail, so we can look at that in the future. I think it's very difficult this year, especially with the transition and so much development. We need to review it next year so we can place more precise finances on it. When Beverley and Bloom first planted the plants, and they've already started watering them, it's before the partnership, because of the way things have panned out. Yeah. So this year is a bit of a funny one in a way, that almost not a write-off, but we can look at it, and we do need to get more detail. We'll have that for next year.
I do believe as well, Chair, that where possible, we have to encourage the In Bloom group to do their own watering up in certain areas where they can, but where obviously they can't, we of course will support them. I mean, Tony, who's here, our contractor, is watering up our barrier planters and all the other planters which we've put up as a town council. And it would be foolish to pass a Beverley and Bloom planters and not bother watering. I think that I would move then that we support this application, Chair. We would grant them 2,600 as Matt has suggested, and we say to them we will adjust that figure at the back end of the year, so that gives Matt, as the officer, plenty of time to look at the actual cost of the watering and work something out. But I feel at the end of the day that if we have got it wrong, then we can adjust it at the end of the year. I think it's a no-brainer that we have to support them.
Yeah, Matt, you were going to say something.
Yeah. Rather than adjusting this grant at the end of the year, we'd look at how it affects the second year worth of grant. Yeah. Rather. But either way, it'll influence that. So, so if that was the proposal, 2,600, taking into account the additional £400 worth of watering and photocopying that we'll provide, and then we'll look at it next year, because it might be more, it might be less, it might be about the same, but we'll know next time. But either way, it would be £2,600 financial allocation directly to Bloom with that proposal.
And can I just say, Chair, as well, just a rider to that. I don't know how they are technology-wise, but one idea for meeting would be to Zoom meet. That way, it would only cost them the Zoom call. If that, there is other means of meeting virtually, and I do think that would reduce the cost considerably.
Yes, Matt. Yeah.
A way that we could support them with that, as we did do with their AGM, is as long as there's no other meeting happening at the same time, they could use our Zoom account. I could set it up for them, because it won't cost anything extra. The only thing we can't do is have two meetings concurrent. So I can liaise with them and say, if they want it, I can schedule it, set it up for them, and then leave the meeting.
Yeah, great idea. Chloe?
Yeah, I was just going to say that sounds like an absolutely excellent idea, as long as they're sort of happy with that. That would be a sort of stopgap for whilst we're saying that our offices wouldn't be available.
Absolutely, yeah.
Although I still think perhaps the idea about suggesting to them like an alternative venue if they want to meet outside would be good. Just,
I think we've got an issue as well with the capacity in the office as well, not just the space in the meeting room, but the fact that they need to be independent. They need to be outside of the town council, and therefore encouraging them to go elsewhere, facilitating a Zoom meeting, but encouraging them to meet elsewhere. And that can bring in new members as well, especially if they met at somewhere like Oldroyd's, would be great. So the proposal is that we welcome Beverley and Bloom as our first partner organisation with a grant of £2,600, and that will be reviewed on an annual basis, but will be ongoing for the next 3 years.
Councillor Estelle proposed that. Who do I have a second, Madam Chair?
Yeah, who wants to second? Yeah, Chloe? Yeah, and it's fully covered. One thing I think we do need to do, Matt, is to produce a certificate for our partner organisations so that we can have a proper presentation. The other thing we need to do is we need to ensure we have an ambassador councillor who would work alongside Beverley and Bloom.
If I may, Madam Chair, I was thinking that might be something we want to raise at full council. Because there are councillors who aren't here who might wish to, councillors who aren't here who have in the past been very involved with Bloom. So it'd just be good, I think, to have that being something that we put a pin in until full council is able to meet in person.
Excellent.
Yeah, I think that works well, Madam Chair, because they will be representing the council, not just this committee. And it might be a way to get councillors who maybe aren't in those main committees but have a passion in a particular area to get more heavily involved.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Excellent. Well, I'm absolutely delighted, and congratulations to Beverley in Bloom. Let's move on to our next application, which is from Cherry Tree Community Centre. Matt, perhaps you'd like to give us some background to this.
Yeah, in the past, the town council, different to in Bloom, where we held the money and worked with them, the town council budgeted X amount for Cherry Tree and gave it straight over to them. We as a council need to be more accountable and make sure that we have more paper trails, etc. What happens with finances? So that's nothing against Cherry Tree, it's how we manage our finances. Now, last year we did give some extra money to Cherry Tree, as we did the food bank, but that was separate to the usual. That was emergency funding during COVID, specifically to support families and individuals who are struggling to purchase food, etc. So that was separate to any other source of grants because it was emergency. What Cherry Tree have applied for this time is very specific. In the past, it was here's the money, but they've asked something very specific, which is for youth outreach work. And also to not just have the youth worker, but to develop youth outreach activities as well. So what they've asked for is very specific.
Absolutely. I would invite comments from my fellow councillors with regard to this application. Yes, Anne.
I'm all for it. Cherry Tree do the most amazing stuff and need all our support. And sort of, if you know what I mean, they're doing it on our behalf. We'd have to do it if they didn't. So sounds a bit of a cop out, doesn't it? But you know what I mean. But no, I think we absolutely must support them.
Thank you. Yes, Chloe.
Yes, sorry, it just went a bit strange on my end there. I was going to say, obviously, I think it's really important, particularly to think about looking at support for young people in the town, especially after what particularly difficult time they've had over the past year or so. It has been very, very tough for them. So I think that's a really important thing. I just had a query about the application, actually, which was that I noticed on the other sources of income, there was nothing in. Am I right in assuming that's because there's no other sources of income for this specific project? Because based on their, on their other finances, obviously they have other sources of income.
Yeah, the Cherry Tree's applied very project-based rather than full organisational based.
Yeah, that was what I thought from their note. Thank you. Yeah. I just wanted to clarify it. I think it looks like a good application. I think the suggestion of us being able to get regular scheduled updates would be good. It'd be good to liaise with them about what would be a good level of regular without being onerous on either the town council or Cherry Tree. You know, we don't necessarily need to be sending someone in there every month going, tell us how it's going. And I think probably would be a bit difficult, but like some kind of an update on how the youth work was, how the youth worker was getting on and all of that would be really good. And I think also welcome the council to the AGM. That'd be great. I think we should definitely try and send someone to the AGM and just bolster that relationship with them.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Estelle. Pete.
Yeah, I support what Chloe has said, and I'll go further. This is the start, hopefully, of better things to come in the future. We all know that the young people do not have anywhere to call their own as a youth club. The East Riding closed Burden Road Youth Centre down, and although there is some activity there regarding the youth, it's not sufficient. And this type of youth work is more apparent now, more common in a lot of towns and indeed cities and villages alike. And I think this, in supporting this, is kick-starting something that hopefully will get bigger and better, because there is a lot of work to be done in Beverley, and in particular around the Cherry Tree area, Swinemo Lane, and broader area. I would like this application to go forward, and Linda and myself in the past have spoken about the lack of youth worker and obviously youth centres, and I'm sure that with the Cherry Tree being able to get some money to support them, that will enable them to work more closely with us as a town council, because it's a two-way thing. Us councillors get problems brought to our attention by members of the public from town to town. We can feed that across to the Cherry Tree, and also I'm sure that the Cherry Tree would work closely with Airvas, because Airvas, I know that they're supporting in some way, shape or form young people. So what I would like as well also is, in supporting this, is that, and Chloe touched on it, that we get some feedback, not on a monthly basis, say every quarter, like we used to do when we used to employ the two detached youth workers, you remember?
Yeah.
They used to come with a report, we've achieved this, sadly this has happened, blah, 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 and it used to give us a good insight as to what they were doing as our youth workers in the society that they were working in. So I think this, again, is a no-brainer. Would be daft not to support it, and I would move it, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Can I welcome David Horsley to the meeting? He's managed to get his technology sorted out, which is fantastic news. Perhaps, Councillor Horsley, you just indulge me the honour of just finishing with this current application before.
Deal with any you possibly can.
That's very kind of you.
I'm sorry that I'm so late. I'm eventually using a third computer.
Oh my goodness.
Not the new one, which I couldn't get to work, and not the old one, which hasn't been working for 3 weeks.
Right, well, you're here and that's all that matters. With regard to Cherry Tree, I think this is an excellent application.
Can I just be excused for 2 minutes, please? Thank you.
Of course you can. Yeah, I think this is an excellent application. I've been involved as a ward councillor in Molescroft, in St Mary's ward, looking at youth provision in the town, and I was really shocked to find that there is only 4 hours of detached youth work funded. Clearly that is not enough, and I think this is such a positive thing that we can do, and it shows the support of the Cherry Tree Centre and all the fantastic work that Cherry Tree Centre do too. So I think this kind of, to use a horrible cliche, kills 2 birds with 1 stone, but it does, in that it shows our support for Cherry Tree, and it shows our support for youth work as well. And as Councillor Estelle said, hopefully we can go on to provide more support for our young people in the future. They have had, as Chloe says, the most dreadful year, and I can't imagine how it's been for them at all. They've been extremely resilient, and I think we should do everything we can to support them. So I would be more than happy to move that we support this to the full £3,000.
Yep.
Do I have a seconder? Yeah, fantastic. Everybody in favour?
Yeah.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I got the first hand I went to saw go, but the second was Councillor Willis, so I put Councillor Willis and all hands shot up. So it's the full £3,000 with a request for quarterly feedback of activities, and also to open up alongside the ambassador, because that goes without saying, because that'll be the same with all applications, but also knowledge of who to contact. So what councillors in their work in the community can contact someone directly, so we can officiate exactly what route for communication they take, rather than having to bring something to the council, then go to the cherry tree. They can go directly to cherry tree, and cherry tree can look into any of the issues. So I'll ask for a direct email address or contact number that councillors can link to as well as part of that.
That's a great idea. Thank you, Matt. Wonderful. So, Councillor Horsey, are you sure you wouldn't like to take over?
Fairly sure, yes. I would say on this one and on all of them that it is important that we get the right people to be the ambassadors, and people who are capable of actually sitting on a board there and keeping silent when they've got nothing important to say for the organisation, but chipping in when they feel that either they're going down a really bad track, or when they are misunderstanding what the council can do for them.
That is a very good point. Thank you.
Just to update Councillor Horsey on that, when we discussed when councillors made the decision on Beverley and Bloom, they decided that the actual ambassadors would be selected at full council because they're representing the council, and just as you said, Councillor Horsey, we need people who actually want to be involved, maybe have some passion or interest in that area, so we'll bring them to full council for the wider body of council to be considered as ambassadors.
That seems sensible, but I would say we shouldn't exclude a possibility that more councillors may wish to be involved over and above the ambassadors, but it's the ambassadors who we will insist on having and who will have the responsibility.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, David. The other thing that we mentioned as well before you joined us was that we should produce some kind of certificate to announce the partnership status of these organisations, to show that there is a real link between the two organisations, and they can stick it on the wall. And we can have a proper ceremony, can't we, of promoting these organisations. Beverley and Bloom, of course, we've already discussed, they do a fantastic job in the town, as do indeed the Cherry Tree Community Centre. So let's move on to the third.
I would say that once you're talking about logos and that sort of thing, it might be useful to produce a logo to go on their letterheads if they choose, just saying a partner with Beverley Town Council.
Yeah, well, we do have the Beverley Town Council working with the community, so we could maybe
I can adapt that. That's a good idea from Councillor Horsey. I can adapt that so it's the same thing that each group get.
Excellent. That's brilliant. Great. So the third application, again for a partnership, and I'm delighted that people are taking this idea to heart and realising that we can work together and that two heads are better than one, is from Beverley Rugby Union Football Club. And I thought this was a really interesting application. So I'd love to hear your comments from it. Chloe, do you want to start?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. I actually quite like this application. I thought it was really good to have a suggestion of a Pride event. I'd absolutely love that if, we couldn't have what we wanted in terms of a Pride. It would be really good to be able to support something like this. Yeah, I'd be very keen. I think it's great, and it really shows the kind of supporting inclusivity in the town, And also, I mean, we just know how much good work the rugby club's done in terms of supporting the community throughout COVID. Like the amount of they've given over their space to groups, the amount of support they've given, it's just been incredible, you know. So a real worthy partner of the council, in my view.
Excellent. Yes, David?
Yes, I would agree with Chloe in saying that they have done a very good job, and that they are very capable in their field. Unfortunately, their proposal is to do things that are entirely outside their field, which is not our wish really at all. We don't want to divert them from the things they've been doing well. We want to help them to do those things better. So I'd want to give a reply here that on the one hand is encouraging to a partnership, but on the other hand, not encouraging as to what they're hoping to spend most of the money on.
Thank you, David. Anne, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I must admit, when I first saw this, and I thought, rugby club, I thought, do we really want to support them? But when I remembered myself particularly, the sort of things that they've done, the open days, the festivals, that sort of thing. And again, hopefully doing things with youngsters. We're so short of, as you were saying, of things with youngsters that, yeah, I would support them. I changed my mind.
Okay, well, a woman's prerogative. Matt?
Yeah, I mean, just for councillors, I think it's already been mentioned that the community outreach that the rugby club have, and I can appreciate that, you know, there are two minds when it comes to applications, because is this going to their core work, or is their core work slightly different than it appears? And to some degree, it's unfortunately quite deceptive. Deceptive not in a nasty way, but the fact that they're called Beverley Rugby Club kind of hides what they're doing for the community under a bushel, and doesn't fully express what they actually do and bring to the community, just by the nature of the title. And I think that councillors can look at this in terms of the rugby club's wider community remit and what they do for the community. And whilst everything they do will also promote all the events that I've mentioned in here, which aren't necessarily playing rugby, will promote the rugby club as a wider organisation, as a sport, as a community organisation, a social organisation for Beverley as well. So I think councillors can be quite satisfied with my advice that whilst what they're applying for isn't necessarily directly rugby related, their group is very Beverley community related as well. Yeah. And it kind of brings the two together. So I think councillors could feel confident that they can support this as something that goes beyond what we feel their initial remit may be. As Councillor Willis said, when you actually look into it, that what they're doing and what they're applied for and their wider remit of working in the community is evident within the application. It's just, in my personal opinion, unfortunately, the name kind of hides all the wonderful things that they do.
Thank you for that, Matt. Peter, would you like to comment on the Beverley Rugby Club application?
No, Madam Mayor, I just think they do some good work again with the young people. And I think that that this community engagement is something that more clubs should get involved with. I'm sure they do get involved with from time to time, but I think the Rugby Union Football Club does a lot of work, not just with teenagers, but with younger people of all ages.
Thank you, Chloe.
I actually just wanted to add a couple more thoughts, which is all of these sort of three events that they mentioned, the festival, the open day, and Pride event, would all very much facilitate their idea of promoting rugby in the community and the playing of it and so on. But I also wanted to particularly think for the Pride event is that from a very personal perspective, if you're from the queer community, it can often feel like sports groups are a hostile place. So I think it is really important that we support something that actually says that's not the case, that sport is for everybody. And, you know, absolute props to them for being a part of that movement of saying that, you know what, inclusivity and including people in sports so that everybody can enjoy the sports that they love is so important.
Absolutely. Just on a side to that, the Pride flags will be going up in Beverley again as of the 1st of August. And so far, we've got 48 shops signed up.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
It makes me feel so happy to see, like, when I was younger, the town didn't always feel as inclusive. It's really nice to see the town getting, it just feels like a more inclusive and more friendly place, I think.
Yes.
And the applications are still coming in.
Oh, yeah,
it's great, isn't it? So they were handed out. Every shop got a personal invitation handed out to them, and they started literally flooding back in the following day. So I am really enthused about that, which is just fantastic. So and we have, of course, got money in the budget for a Pride anyway. But wouldn't it be great to know that we've already got a partner who is going to help with that, or we could help them, whichever way.
Exactly.
So again, that kind of takes all the pressure off the town council to be doing things themselves. Absolutely. So I thoroughly enjoyed their music open day that they did last year. I thought it was great fun. I could stand in my back garden, so I'm sure you could in yours, Anne and Chloe, and hear the music, which drew us there, in fact. There was lots of young people there, which is fantastic. So yeah, I'm very much minded to support them as well. The amount of money, are we happy to go the full amount? Okay. So Chloe,
my inclination is that with it being used to support 3 events, that it's reasonable to suggest that we give the full amount. You know, for one thing, like they note, if you're paying to, for example, have a road closure, that can be a fairly significant cost, as we know well. So it seems to me that based on the things they're suggesting, and I like also sort of on the topic of the updates, their suggestion of the quarterly meetings again. Quarterly sounds like a reasonable thing. I think one of the things with these partnerships is we don't want to be imposing too much administrative burden on our partners or ourselves. To be honest, we don't want to be overburdening ourselves either, but this is a good way, I think.
I mean, we may have a councillor who's already a member anyway, who is happy to take on that role, or it may be somebody who doesn't actually play rugby but wants to do it for the community side of things. So once again, we can bring that to full council and see if we have any volunteers. So are you proposing that, Councillor Hopkin?
Absolutely.
Okay, can I have a seconder, please? Yeah, Councillor Willis, was that Matt?
Yeah.
Yep.
And all in favour? Yeah, carried. That's fantastic. Hey, we have 3 new partners this evening. I just hope when we write to them, they're all as big as we are, which is fantastic. Really looking forward to that partnership with Beverley Rugby Union Football Club as well. I think it's an organisation that perhaps the town council hasn't engaged with much in the past, and I think this is going to be really exciting moving forward. So D is a small grant application, and perhaps Matt, you'd just like to give us the background to this application.
Yeah, the Wombles, as we've known, have been to the town council before, and they do not just some fantastic work, a lot of fantastic work, litter picking, tidying up throughout the town. There's now dozens and dozens of people involved. Now, last time when they came to seek funding, they weren't constituted, etc. So what we did is purchase litter pickers and for the children's litter pickers, grown adult litter pickers, and solid circular things that you clip your black bin liner onto so you can carry it around, etc. They arrived recently, and Paul Coe came to collect them. So they've got all that equipment from the previous year now. They've done a lot of hard work to constitute themselves as an official group. I think they've been to Airvast, who are giving them some fantastic support, to get a bank account, to make so they have more autonomy, and are able to apply for funds rather than items. And that's what they've done this time. They've submitted a small grant, knowing that they're not long enough established for a larger grant or a partnership grant. But I think it's a good example of an organisation that, if council supported this, could look to see them in a year or two developing to become a partner when they have that history and that track record. One of the main reasons it's more rigorous as a partner is the sheer amount of money, the potential of £9,000, and we have to over 3 years. And councillors have to remember that this is taxpayers' money, so we have to be certain. The council has to be certain that the organisation they're giving the money to have a track record and responsibility to be able to manage it appropriately, which sometimes only comes with time, so you can prove it. So the application is here. You've been able to see what they're looking for, and I think it's quite evident that they've made a huge bound in the past year into their actual structure and organisation.
Thank you, Matt. Anne?
Is £500 enough?
That's the maximum.
Is that what we give it? So we give that in the first instance, and if they want more, they can come to grants again.
Well, they cannot apply for any other size grant at the moment,
Yeah.
because they're not long enough established, so they don't have audited accounts. So this is kind of a stepping stone.
But also, it makes, if they apply for money elsewhere, they can say they're getting something from the council. Again, it's they're doing the work for us, is what I feel.
Yes, Chloe.
I was going to say, I mean, one thing I've noticed is obviously they've received a grant from Woodmansea.
Good, yeah.
And from and Molescroft.
Yes. Which I think it's therefore sort of reasonable for us to say that we would also be part of supporting them. The breakdown to me looks pretty reasonable in terms of the purchases that they want to have a look at. Social events at £50, they might need to find additional funding for that, but I suppose it depends if their social events are intended to be something that's perhaps fundraising as well. But yeah, this all looked like a pretty reasonable breakdown to me. As Matt says, we've seen that they've made a lot of leaps and bounds. The note about they're not yet in a position to say exactly because they've not got formal membership yet, but this will be part of helping support them to that situation. It's exactly the kind of thing that we were thinking that the small grants would be useful for, that we support somebody who's not quite, support organisations that are not quite as well established. So I think this seems pretty reasonable in terms of the application there. And if they sort of get to this point of being able to be a partner, that would be wonderful too.
Absolutely, Pete.
Yeah, I endorse what you've said there, Chloe, and this organisation has sort of come on in leaps and bounds from nowhere in the last 18 months. They've organised themselves on a wing and a prayer, for want of a better word. They've begged, steal and borrowed. They really have, and they've had a lot of offers from businesses to keep them ongoing, with like litter pickers that don't come cheap, and the rings that you have to have to support the plastic bags and gloves and PPE, all being donated. And the group has grown. Nearly every street has a member of the Wombles, and every bit of the community certainly will have a member of the Wombles. And I just think that this is showcasing our small grants partnership with them, that such organisations like this can come for a small amount to keep them going. And who knows, in a couple of years' time, as Linda has said, that they will get probably to a point where they can become partners. But nevertheless, and I do see on the audited accounts, there's no yes and there's no, and safeguarding Polly, no yes and no tick. And I'm guessing that's because they're already working towards that to get it to get those two areas so they can tick the boxes next year. So it really has been a team effort for this group, of not only the group but the officials of the group, the chair, the vice chair, treasurer, secretary, etc. And I just think that credit to them, credit to the leaders, and I would move it, Madam Chair, that we give them 500 quid.
Excellent. David.
I think also that we should be encouraging them to think that next year, with a track record and with audited accounts, that they should well be looking at how they develop in terms of doing things which would need us to be providing them with 1,000 or 1,500 rather than just 500.
Yeah.
Moving into the large grant scheme.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, as you can see, they've developed a new logo, Beverley, or TWOB, as they are affectionately known, with, is it a black mill? I'm not quite sure whether it's the Minster or the black mill, and a couple of litter pickers as cross swords across the bottom with a couple of bit bins as well, which I think is brilliant. So they're looking to get that now printed up on their high vis vests as well. I think it's a great idea. It's something which has really taken off in a big way. Kids are now proud to be a Womble, and they do morning Wombles and they do late night Wombles, and you can go out at any time of the day and night almost and see somebody wombling, as they call it. So more power to them, to great Uncle Bulgaria and Madame Cholet and everybody else. And I fully support giving them 500 quid. Do I have a proposer and a seconder? So Peter, proposer, seconder David. Is that carried?
Yeah.
Fantastic. That's wonderful. You know, isn't it nice spending money in it's great spending money, but knowing that it's going to such fantastic people. Yeah. Thank you. Yes, Matt.
Yeah, just so to explain now the process of what happens next. Tomorrow, I'll write to each of the organisations, both an email, and I'll send a copy of it by the post, through the post as well, explaining the decisions from tonight, and that at the next meeting of full council, these will be put forward for ratification. Once that's happened, we can then make the payments. So they will have their payments by the end of this calendar month.
Well, that's excellent news. Thank you. That's fantastic news. Of course, just for anybody watching who's thinking of applying for a grant, they are only available for organisations, and you have to have a bank account because otherwise we can't pay you. And all the information that you could possibly want to know is on the website, is on the Town Council website.
The next meeting of this committee is the 13th of October. So the next deadline for grants is the 29th of September. However, partnership grants can be submitted at any time. And if the next meeting coming up for grants is far off. It'll be taken to Policy and Finance Committee, because we want to make, because there's that much more detail in the partnership grants, and the council wants to really be enthusiastic about pushing them off. It was felt that they could be viewed on an ongoing basis rather than the deadlines. Everything is on the website for anybody who wants to see what we require.
Fantastic. So yeah, Beverley Town Council working as a community with community organisations. So yeah, what a great evening this has been. Thank you very much indeed. I'm now going off to watch a football match. I think there's something important happening.
Oh, I'm going not to watch a football match.
My flag. And yeah, so get your flags out, if you're an England supporter, that is. And thank you very much indeed. And fantastic that you were able to join us, David, as well.
Matt, can you just tell me the date again of the next meeting?
The next meeting is...
Are we off Zoom? Are we off YouTube?
Not quite yet.
So
If anyone's in, yeah, the next meeting is the 30th of October, and the